of work in putting this together, and it's a really, really good piece of work. For those of you who haven't read it, it's well worth reading. And I mean, there are lots of things I can talk about in the report, but one of the things I particularly like about it, I think, is it doesn't hold back from portraying the complexity of this issue of poverty. Because, you know, as has been alluded to several times, we tend to work with stereotypes, whether it's north versus south, coastal versus non-coastal. There's poverty in all sorts of places in this country. And just from personal experience, so I'm someone who grew up in Wakefield and lives in Oxford. And there's poverty in both places. It's more obvious in Wakefield. But actually, there is something almost particularly insidious about poverty in prosperous places. When you're in Wakefield, you can't forget that there's poverty because the city looks poor. In Oxford, it's very easy to forget that there's poverty, but there are real pockets of horrible deprivation there. And one of the things I really like about this report is it doesn't shy away from tackling the fact that this exists everywhere and that the solutions to poverty are going to be different depending on the places that you're talking about. Talking about which, I should say a word about buses. I like the focus on buses a lot. I mean, just thinking about Wakefield. I mean, Wakefield is a place where there are former mining towns where people still live, where you couldn't work in the city centre if you wanted to because there isn't a bus service to get you there and back in time for work. So, you know, for places like Wakefield, buses are absolutely fundamental. But we shouldn't kid ourselves in thinking that there's a silver bullet. I mean, the absence of trams in some of our major cities is an absolute scandal. The fact that a city the size of Birmingham doesn't have a bloody underground, when you compare it to any city of a similar scale across Western Europe, I mean, forget Western Europe. I mean, Calcutta's got a very good underground. You know, we're talking about decades of underinvestment in basic services that would make some of our leading cities a lot more prosperous and a lot more productive than they are now. And transport itself, of course, is only one of a number of things. A couple of weeks ago, I had to go to Clacton. Now, I'm hideously ignorant about the east of England, so I went to the Liverpool Street expecting the worst and got on this shiny brand new train that took me to Clacton. I was thinking, bloody hell, this is fantastic. You get to Clacton and you suddenly realise you might have a great transport link to London, but this is a place that is suffering from underinvestment. You know, giving someone a good train service to London isn't the end of regional inequality. It might help. I'm not quite sure it is helping in Clacton, to be perfectly honest. But we should, you know, this is a multifaceted thing. And the wonderful thing about this report is it doesn't shy away from telling us that. One of the things that makes me optimistic, I mean, Lisa mentioned 2016, Take Back Control and all that, is the fact that, you know, inequality, poverty are now central to our political debate in a way that I think pre-2016 you couldn't have imagined. And obviously this has always been true of the Labour Party, but it is striking to me the degree to which since 2016 we have a Conservative Party that suddenly has discovered inequality and poverty as well. You know, think back to that Conservative manifesto of 2017 that talked about the problems with capitalism and the need to deal with inequality. Think about the slogan Levelling Up. Think about the Levelling Up white paper, which in many ways is a pretty good document. At a minimum, we can say that the Conservatives are now willing to talk about inequality. Whether they're willing to act about it is a whole different thing. But I think we have a real window of opportunity here that has been opened by that referendum of 2016, where there is a consensus on the fact that inequality is something that we should not tolerate and that we should do something about. And it's a window of opportunities reinforced by the fact that all the survey evidence shows that public opinion has shifted too. Public opinion now identifies regional inequality as a significant problem confronting the country. Public opinion now is shifting in favour of greater devolution as well. We did some survey work a couple of years ago that showed that actually people want levelling up, or whatever you want to call it, to be handled by local councils, by local politicians and not by central government. So we have an opportunity. We have a really good diagnosis in the report. We have a political opportunity. And then I suppose the question is whether politics can deliver on all of this. And there are some reasons to be optimistic. I hate to say this when I'm sitting next to Lisa, but actually Labour's initiatives on housing, I think, are very, very good. and provide a very good starting point for addressing some of the chronic issues in housing that this country confronts. I think devolution, that everyone, as Luke said, is now talking about, is an obvious solution to some of the problems that we face. Though I would add a caveat here, given some of the things that we've seen and heard about happening in the Northeast, devolution needs to be accompanied by proper checks and balances. We need to have proper oversight. One of the most amazing things I've learned recently is that the National Audit Office has to be asked to investigate this kind of sub-regional spending, and I think we need to develop a system that is safe and transparent, as well as devolving power down to the regions. My real concern, I suppose, is whether inequality and poverty aren't party political things. They shouldn't be partisan. And as the report correctly identifies, any solution is going to take decades, because we're dealing with underinvestment that has gone on for decades. My real concern, I suppose, is whether our political system is capable of delivering the kinds of long-term problems that we need. We have a political system in which there are prizes to be gained from undoing what the preceding government did. This sort of adversarial two-party politics that we have is very, very inadequate when it comes to developing cross-party solutions to long-term problems. And yes, we can sit here and say, won't it be great to have a Labour government that actually tackles some of these things? Yes, except a Labour government, unless you have 20 years of Labour government, is not going to be able to tackle these things. A Labour government is going to be able to make a start. So we need to think, I suppose, about, I'm an old fogey and I'm quite attached to first past the post, but I wonder whether first past the post delivers political outcomes capable of generating long-term solutions to our problems. Because after all, it was first past the post that allowed lots of parts of our country to be ignored for so long. The best thing Wakefield ever did was become marginal. If you wanted to give a top tip to every constituency in the country, it is pretend to be marginal. And then actually you'll see people talking about you, people thinking about you. So I think beyond the kind of very, very good sort of diagnosis and recommendations of the report, I do think at some point we're going to have to start thinking long and hard about our politics and whether it is equipped to deal with some of the problems that we as a country now face. Thank you.